A thing is an idol by default, because we pretend change comes to a halt. To a ripened soul, a clarion call. Few will hear it, not many at all. These simple words will make those souls sing. In all the world, there is not even one thing. Good afternoon. I am Mokurai, monk of Silent Thunder Temple and Tai Chi instructor here at Stone Age Climbing Gym. Today, as we have been doing recently, I will go through the whole form, and then I will have a very strange and mystifying story to tell you after the form, and then some Qigong as well. But here we go. Yang style, 108 motions, Silent Thunder version. little Qi Gong now. Inhale, splash the face with Qi. Hold breath. Inhale more. Breathe out. Breathe in. Hold the breath. Breathe out. On our own, breathing slowly, but not in a way that we cannot maintain. One last one. A martial artist, having trained for years, sought to take his training to a more advanced level. He sought nothing less than enlightenment. He heard of a particular supermaster who lived alone and was the guardian of a great book of mysteries, which contained the secret knowledge that this martial artist was seeking. This martial artist's name was Cord. The keeper of the book, the supermaster, his name was Zeton. So Cord ventures out. He knows that all he has to do is start to walk. And his karma and his mind will draw events to him that will aid him in his quest for the book. And Zita. He encounters several challenges on his journey. Different martial artists seeking to kill him, which he successfully manages to survive and continue on with his quest. Then his karma drew to him a vision of a blind man with a flute this long that could apparently see, even though he was blind, using some sort of different senses. He could see and wander around unaided, and this blind man walked right past Cord with a determined look on his face. And he entered into a ruined fort and stood there in the middle of a great opening. As if he knew something were about to happen. Sure enough, several martial artists from all over congregated in this ruined fort. And one by one they came out and challenged this blind master, whose name was Chongsha. And they challenged him to fight. And Chongsha, the blind master, with his flute that made strange music as he twirled it through the air, it became a weapon. And he used this weapon to defeat the martial artists that had two good eyes. One by one. They could not defeat this blind man. Cord was watching from a darkened corner in the shadows, and he was amazed at the skill of Chongsha, the blind martial artist. Chongsha, the blind man, defeated all of the challengers and then vanished into the darkness. The next day, Cord ventured into a cave filled with light and flying birds, and he saw Chongsha sitting down on a rock, cross-legged, as I am sitting cross-legged, and he was playing his flute, his mysterious flute that was a weapon as well, made music as he killed and destroyed challengers. Cord was very reverent, and he bowed and said, "With all my skill, with all my years of training, I know I could not survive 5 seconds against you if we were fighting. And yet, I have found you on my journey, so I know that it's very important for me to engage with you in some fashion. Will you consider taking me on as a disciple?" Chongsha, the blind master, replied, "Yes, I am here for you, but I will take you on as disciple only if you abide by the following condition. You must follow me all day long, watch carefully what I do, and no matter what you see or hear, you must not speak a word. Remain merely observant. If you speak a word, our partnership will be ended." Cord was very grateful for the opportunity and somewhat hastily agreed to the conditions. So they left the cave went off on the ventures of this enlightened blind master, Chongsa. Very soon they came to a river. Very difficult to get across. An old man lived in a shack, and he had developed a meager business, a ferry business. He had a boat and a contraption with a long rope and pulley tied to the boat where people could pull themselves across the river in the boat for a fee, and then the ferryman would pull the boat back, ready for the next traveler. And this is how the old man earned his living. Well, the Chongsa and Cord paid the very nominal fee, pulled themselves across the river, got out, and then Chongsha, for some bizarre reason, kicked in the sides of the boat so it sank, thus depriving the ferryman of his means of earning a living. Cord was somewhat disturbed by the actions of the blind man, but remembered his promise to remain silent and did so. They ventured on and very soon came upon some rogue soldiers on horseback who decided they wanted to rob Chongsha and Cord, and they gave chase. Cord and Chongsa fled into a grove of trees, which would be very hard for the horse soldiers to follow. And they weaved in and out of the trees. The horses were having great difficulty keeping up. But then Cord and Chongsa left the grove of trees, and they managed to go through an old house where a widow lived. And she had a stone wall surrounding her house, a short wall, perhaps this tall. And Chongsha and Cord climbed over the stone wall. The horse soldiers were in hot pursuit, and the horses jumped over the stone wall. Cord and Chongsha circled around the house and came back to the very same wall, the very same place where they had crossed over before, where the horse soldiers had jumped over. This time, however, a stone was missing. A horse had knocked the stone down as it leapt over the stone wall, and a bag of gold coins was revealed. The old widow had sought to hide her life savings in the form of gold coins in the wall. Now her life savings were exposed. The sun was glimmering on the gold coins. The horses were in hot pursuit of the two martial artists. But Chongsha decided to stop and put the coins back in the bag and the stone on top of the coins to hide it from the horse soldiers. Then they went on, and they ended up having to fight with the horse soldiers, and they were able to defeat them. Another challenge successfully engaged upon. And Chongsha and Cord continued on in their very eventful adventures. Very soon they came to a small lake with a crowd of people on the shore. and the crowd of people, perhaps 20, looked like a couple of families. And the center of attention seemed to be a teenage boy. Beautiful boy, handsome beyond compare, but also tyrannical, and was ordering his parents around, his siblings around, his friends and companions around, like an out-of-control tyrant. And the people were miserable. The boy was so beautiful, they put him up on a pedestal, worshiping him, and yet submitting to his very unreasonable and unpleasant tyranny. Chongsha and Cord approached. Chongsha walked right up to the boy. The boy looked at him with an arrogant, supercilious expression, expecting Chongsha to also bend to the tyrannical teenager's whims. But Chongsha just looked, even though he was blind, he looked straight at this teenage terror. And then, what? A backhand across the nose. Blood. The boy had never been treated like that. Was amazed. The family members, the mother, were aghast and horrified that somebody could do such a thing unprovoked. But Chongsha, without saying a word, walked away. Cord was very confused and angered, and he ran after the blind master and said, breaking his vow of silence, "That's it. I can't take any more. Explain yourself. How could you do that to the boy, that beautiful boy? You broke his nose. It'll be marred, disfigured forever." "You must pay for your crime. Fight me now. I'm not going to be a submissive disciple anymore. You must pay for what you did to that beautiful gift from God, teenage boy." Chongsha remained unperturbed and said, quite accurately, the boy was a tyrant. His beauty, his being so handsome, was in the way of the well-being and harmony of that whole family clan. When I broke his nose, everybody would be relieved of his tyranny. Cord was still a little upset, but somewhat subdued by the explanation. It made some sort of ruthless sense. But he still wanted to question, now that he was talking, still wanted to question the master about his previous actions. The boat, the ferryman, you kicked in his boat, you deprived him of his ability to earn a living. Explain yourself. With great patience, but with great power, Chongsha said, "I kicked in the sides of the boat so that the soldiers wouldn't use it to cross over the river and kill and rob the ferryman." Now Cord is beginning to appreciate the master a little bit more, but he still wanted questions answered. The gold coins. You're blind. How did you see them? Why did you stop to take time to hide them? Chongsha continued his explanation. The widow's savings were hidden there. I had to cover them up so the horse soldiers would not see them and steal them. But, and now this is where the story gets most interesting. But how could you see the coins? You're blind. How did you know that the rock had been knocked down and exposing the gold coins? How did you see the boy's face, so handsome, to know that his nose needed to be broken? How did you know the horse soldiers were coming? I didn't hear them. I couldn't see them. How did you know that they were going to rob the ferryman? Chuang-Tzu answered by not answering. The eyes of the sage are like mirrors. People look into them and they see themselves. Chuang-Tzu did not answer. Cord pressed on. Did you hear them? No. Did you see them? No. Did you sense them in some way? No. And then an epiphany comes upon Cord, and he says, I've got it. You have been through here before. Chuang-Tzu slapped the face of Cord and said, how many times? You think that there are coincidences or accidents in life? There are not. The events that happen in our lives are toxins and weaknesses of the soul emerging for us to deal with and have them vanquished forever from our consciousness. Those that we did not successfully engage with, we are doomed to repeat over and over again until we finally get it right. How many times have we encountered something in our lives that remind us of another event that was very similar? It could be a personality type, or it could be a situation. It keeps happening to us. It's just there waiting for us to deal with effectively, and then it will rise up no more. Sometimes people are very attached to their problems. They don't want to solve their problems. They would rather keep the comfort of their problem rather than dismissing it from their consciousness for all time and moving on to the unfamiliarity of a new challenge. We want to dissolve karma and move on. We dissolve karma by entering into the present moment and staying there long enough to have a dramatic consequence. Buddha said, if a person remains without thought for 11 seconds, they will enter the first stage of jhana, of meditation. I encourage you to develop powers of concentration to be able to maintain the level of consciousness called suchness. 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 I see something for what it is. And I maintain that awareness. When I enter into the first stage of jhana, of meditation, I make it last even longer. There will be an epiphany. The face slap is required so that it more deeply and profoundly ingrains itself into our consciousness.